The mystery of the giant stone heads. What if I told you that one of the world's most iconic mysteries isn't actually a mystery at all? The massive stone heads on Easter Island have puzzled historians for centuries, but the real story is far stranger than the mystery itself. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and join our curious community. Here, we explore everything that piques your curiosity. If there's anything that puzzles you, share it with us in the comments so we can answer it in the next video. So here's the thing about those giant heads on Easter Island. You've probably seen them in pictures, right? These massive stone faces staring out at the ocean. But here's what most people don't know, and it's going to blow your mind. Those aren't just heads. They have full bodies buried underground. Yeah, you heard that right. The Easter Island heads have bodies. Some of them are buried up to 30 feet deep. But that's just scratching the surface. Because the real question isn't what they are. It's how on earth did a small civilization on one of the most remote islands in the Pacific Ocean, with basically Stone Age technology, manage to carve nearly 900 of these massive statues. Some weighing up to 80 tons. That's the weight of about 50 cars. The island is called Rapa Nui by the locals. And when European explorers first landed there in 1722, they were completely stunned. Here was this tiny, isolated island in the middle of nowhere with almost no trees and a relatively small population. Yet everywhere they looked, there were these gigantic stone figures. Some standing upright on platforms, others lying on their sides, and hundreds more abandoned in quarries, as if the workers just stopped mid-project and walked away. And that's exactly what happened. See, the people of Rapa Nui didn't build these statues for fun or decoration. These were called Moai, and they represented their ancestors. Each one was carved to honor a deceased chief or important family member. The islanders believed these statues held spiritual power, that they literally protected their communities. Having a bigger, more impressive Moai meant your family had more mana, more spiritual authority. So naturally, the different clans started competing, and this is where things get interesting. Because researchers have discovered that between 1100 and 1680 AD, the island experienced what you could call a statue-building arms race. Clans kept trying to outdo each other, making bigger and bigger Moai. The average statue is about 13 feet tall, but some reached nearly 33 feet. One unfinished Moai in the quarry would have stood 69 feet tall if completed. That's taller than a 6-story building. But here's the problem nobody talks about. To carve these massive statues, they needed tools. To move them across the island, they needed ropes and wooden rollers. To stand them upright on stone platforms, they needed massive amounts of timber for scaffolding and leverage. Everything required trees. Lots and lots of trees. When the first Polynesians arrived on Rapa Nui around 1200 AD, the island was covered in lush palm forests. Archaeological evidence shows there were millions of trees, some species growing up to 100 feet tall. But by 1722, when the Europeans arrived, the island was almost completely barren. What happened? The statue obsession consumed the island. Literally. As the competition intensified, clans cut down more and more trees. They needed them for transporting the Moai, for building boats to fish, for construction, for firewood, for everything. But trees don't grow back overnight, especially on a small island with poor soil. And as the forests disappeared, everything started to collapse. Without trees, they couldn't build fishing boats, so their protein sources dwindled. Without forests, the soil eroded, making farming harder. Without wood for shelter and tools, life became desperate, and yet, they kept building statues. Even as their civilization crumbled around them, they kept carving. Because stopping meant admitting defeat in the eyes of their ancestors and rival clans. Archaeological evidence paints a grim picture. By the 1600s, the island had descended into chaos. With resources scarce, warfare broke out between clans. They toppled each other's Moai in what researchers call the statue-toppling wars. If you visit Easter Island today, most of the statues are lying face down. That wasn't time or earthquakes. That was intentional destruction by rival groups trying to destroy each other's spiritual power. The population, which may have reached 15,000 at its peak, crashed to just a few thousand by the time Europeans arrived. Some scholars even suggest there's evidence of cannibalism during this period, though that's still debated. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. Modern researchers have finally figured out how they moved these massive statues without destroying them. For years, people thought they must have dragged them lying down on wooden sleds. But in 2012, archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo tested a radical theory. They discovered that the Moai were designed to be walked to their destinations while standing upright. Look at the shape of a Moai. It's got a big head that tilts the weight forward, a rounded base, and a protruding belly. It's actually perfectly balanced to rock side to side. Teams used 3 ropes, 2 at the sides and 1 in front to prevent falling, and literally walked the statue forward in a waddling motion. They tested this with a 10-foot replica weighing 5 tons, and 18 people successfully moved it. The oral traditions of Rapa Nui actually described the statues walking, but Western researchers dismissed it as myth until they tried it themselves. This explains why so many Moai are found fallen along ancient roads. They weren't being dragged. They were being walked, and they tipped over during transport. So, what's the lesson here? The Easter Island statues aren't just impressive ancient engineering, they're a cautionary tale. A society that became so obsessed with status symbols and spiritual competition that they literally consumed their entire environment. They could see the forests disappearing. They knew they were running out of resources. But the cultural pressure to build bigger, more impressive monuments was so strong that they couldn't stop. Scientists call this ecocide, ecological suicide. And Easter Island serves as a haunting reminder that it doesn't matter how isolated or advanced the civilization is. When you deplete your resources faster than they can regenerate, collapse is inevitable. The giant stone heads of Easter Island aren't mysteries anymore. They're warnings carved in stone, staring out at the ocean, reminding us that sometimes our greatest achievements can also be our downfall. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all the answers to all the questions that are on your mind.